Hey Jack, hey Daniel, how you doing? Hope you're all well. Hey Josh, how are you all? Tim, rockin' steady. This evening, I'm smoking. So I'm smoking my reef, and in my little condor pouch, nice little leather pouch. I don't remember where I got this. Maybe somebody gave it to me. I don't recall. It's a lovely little pouch. It's got a plastic, inside. Got a little zip here, which I keep filters and tamper and whatnot. And it folds flat, really nice. Does the job. What I've got in here today is some vanilla cream mixed with Orlik Golden sliced. I find with many of the aromatics that after you smoke them for a while, you tend to get they're a little bit, you tend to get a bit, like with any tobacco. If you smoke it too much, it kind of gets a bit much, and you get a bit of fatigue in your mouth. So from the flavorings. So Orlik Golden Slice is a great sort of blending tobacco to dilute the tobaccos. So that's what I do. Hey Simplex, Shalom, Gold Leaf. I don't think I've ever had it. Hey Rocking Steady. Am I any better? I'm not sure because I've been drugged up. I didn't take any this morning and it started to hit me again. So it's I'm kind of learning to manage it. I think I'm learning to just deal with it. I don't think it's improved really. If it has, it's improved very slightly. But I'm just learning to deal with it. And this coming week, I just got to get on with life and just cope with it somehow. So this evening, I'm doing a little bit of a freehand pipe. Good to hear that, Jack. Hey, Mr. Johnson. So this is the pipe I'm working on. It's I've got no real template to work from, no pictures. This is just something which is I've been wanting to do, which is to I've got a so this is where it's at the moment. I didn't do any shaping on the lathe at all, and that's really quite tough, I find. I like to get the basic shape on the lathe, but because it's kind of a square but sort of fanned out shank, it's the stem is tapered. It's a square stem, but it's tapered. So I've tried to keep the lines flowing exactly the same way all the way up, and I've got to work out exactly how this is all gonna sort of come together. The top here as well, to get it equal, the sides equal, is really difficult. You got to really get experience with that, and I'm used to getting the basic shape on the lathe. So that's something which I'm working on, and it's looking pretty good. It's getting there. It's certainly getting there. That's the rough shape. It's almost like a horn kind of thing. You can kind of see that there. It looks like a mission, right? That's only because it's still, unstained. It's a very bright piece of briar. Recommend a tobacco for a starter. Um, well, I always, I recommend things like Orlik Golden Sliced, which is a very easygoing Virginia with a little bit of Perique. So it's Virginia but with a little bit of flavour. Or you could try Erin Morphlake. That's the one I recommend as well. It's an aromatic, but it's also not an aromatic with a heavy hand. It's sweet. It's got a fruity flavour. It's enjoyable, and it's a good quality tobacco. I think that what you need to really see is, first of all, is try different genres of tobacco and see what you like. Is so you've got the basic genres, the groups of tobacco. You've got Virginias, you've got Virginia Periques, you've got Orientals, which gives it a kind of an essency, floral kind, depending on which blend it is, kind of flavor. You've got Latakia blends, so you can have Balkan blends, English blends. People call them all different kinds of things, but they basically have Latakia, which is like a barbecue, smoky kind of flavor in them. And you've got Burleys and things like that. I can't talk to you about Burleys because I don't really smoke them very much. Um, so it really depends what you think you might like to start off with, but you won't really know until you start. So my recommendation would be is if I had to pluck one out of the sky, I would say start with Erin Morphlake, and see how you go from there. I'm learning to live with it at the moment, Daniel. I can't say that I'm better as such. Um, I'm not. Are you talking to the guy, Rock and Steady? Okay. Hi, Steph. Um, hello, hello. I once had a role in a play, and all I had to say was hello. I was dressed as a British Bobby, and pretty much it wasn't my only line, but that was one of the lines that got the biggest laugh. Anyway, that was a long time ago. Do I make my own pipes from scratch before buying a lathe, or I used hobby blocks? I didn't use from. I used hobby blocks because I hadn't the foggiest idea how to drill them. I only started drilling once I had a lathe. So it's got some interesting grain on this one. I didn't really make a shape around the grain. I just decided to just go for a shape and see how it goes, see how my freehanding goes. Um, but it's kind of, we'll see. It still needs tightening up. Like I say, it looks a little bit like a horn. And the main thing I wanted to get is to get this flowing line all the way to the button. So we'll see how that works out. So it's tapered literally from the button all the way up to the ball. And how that junction is going to work out, I'm not entirely sure yet. I might sort of go up the sides and maybe make it a little bit of a panel on the sides. I'm not sure. Oh, you're addressing me, Simon. Right, okay. I'm not into Burleys, no. But it depends. You know, some of the blends that I smoke all the time have Burley in it because Burley is often the base tobacco, and often it's used to carry the flavorings as well. But Burley's for Burley's sake, I'm not really into. So Haunted Book I've tried, but I didn't. I don't think I liked it. I didn't really give it enough of a chance to try it. To be honest, to be perfectly honest with you, you know, I've got so many tobaccos that I really enjoy, so I'm not really that invested in really pushing myself to the extent that I get used to a blend, even if I don't like it initially. Just keep ploughing away till I enjoy it, because that would happen probably with a lot of tobaccos, which you may not like initially, but if you keep going and you start to understand the nuances of the blend and you start to get to grips with it, you're probably gonna like any blend. But I just didn't feel the need. You know, I've got enough blends that I enjoy. So what? I'm going to get another bunch of jars sitting on my shelf. You know, so I didn't really push myself. There are a couple of Burley blends which I've got. So I've got an old tin of it's in a jar now of McBaron. I think it's called London Blend. It's an old Burley. It's from the 19s. I don't know when it was, the 60s or the 70s. It was an old tin, and that has some really nice flavouring. Very typical McBaron. Hi James. I don't know if that was the first pipe I did, the 320, but you're right. I did have a 320 which I sanded all the way back and restained, and I gave that to what's her name? She's not on anymore. Ooh, what's her name? Um, I don't remember her name now. She's a funny girl. I don't remember her name. Yeah, exactly. Rocking steady. That will happen. I think with any blend, if you persevere, you're gonna like it eventually. Daniel, this is a grinder. I use that for sharpening my chisel. So that's what's in my pipe at the moment. It's a diluted vanilla cream, so it's got a bit of All It Golden sliced in there just to dilute it just a little bit. There's lots of ways, Simplex. You can get some oxy solution and put it in and just let it soak overnight. Have a look on YouTube. Search it. I do it because I've got a workshop, so I do it by sanding. You just sand off the top layer. I mean, look, this is the one I'm working on at the moment, and you just touch it with sandpaper and you get that brown color, because that's what it's made of until you polish it. It's made of rubber. So you can get these kind of things, micro mesh, or just get some nail files, and you can do it with that. Take it up to a really high grit, and it will polish it to a shine. On this one, Daniel, I didn't make the shape to make the best out of the grain, because I really wanted to focus on the shaping and not worry too much about the grain on this particular pipe. Whether I rusticate it or smooth it or do part and part, I'll only know once I get to the end and see. I can see that there is nice grain on it though. So although it's not straight grain or anything like that, there is a fair bit of grain there. It's like a multi mix of grains. And there's some bird's eye on the heel. So it should be fine. You know, it could very well be a smooth pipe, but you know, if the shaping doesn't go as well as I'd like, I might end up rusticating it anyway, because rusticating a pipe does give you a little bit of leeway. You know, if the shaping is not absolutely perfect, rusticating it allows you some rough edges. Yes, Josh, I did. I was on the floor on my knees. For a second, thought, you know what, sod it. I'm going to leave them on the floor. I'm carrying on working, but I thought, you know, I'll regret it. So I just did it there and then. Did you see the pictures I sent you, Josh? On Messenger? There you go, Simplex. What Hermit said. Yeah, you can't leave out the H, Josh. Well, when it comes to different quality briars, Daniel, you're really in the hands of the briar cutter. So in most of my briar's case, it's Mimo from Italy. So they grade the briar, and they're experts. I don't know how they do it, but I guess they know how to read the briar. They can see the coloration of it. They can see the if there's sort of flaws in the briar. For instance, if you've got a briar ball, the whole root, and you see some black marking going through it, even though you can't see all the way inside, but if you can see it, the angle of it, and you can see it's going through, you can kind of make an assumption that it might go further in. So he's going to grade that as the lowest grade briar, or he'll chuck it away, depending on. But they cut it open and they see what's going on inside the briar, and they make the best of it as they can. How they grade it, I don't know. In terms of the quality, it's more about the grain. I'm pretty sure it's more about the grain. And you see some of the high enders making some beautiful straight grain, showing some beautiful straight grain blocks. They're paying for that. That doesn't come out of luck. Alfonso, how you doing? Alfonso Luigi Maria Masiochi. Most of my briar is Italian briar. That's an age-old question, Daniel. Fittingly, people argue whether older briar produces a better smoke or not, and I've seen arguments on both sides. Some people say that the older the briar, the better it is. Some people say that you can actually have briar which is too old, but for the most part, as long as it's been cured, it's been boiled, which Mimo does. The briar that you get from Mimo is ready to go, and by the time you get it, it's usually between a year and 2 years old, and by all accounts, it's ready for making pipes. Some pipe makers, they have the ability to have huge stocks which they can store. I'm not in that position, but some of them have briar which is very, very old. But I can only talk to you about my experience. And my experience is that I smoke mostly my own pipes now. I smoke plenty of other pipes as well, but for the most part, I smoke my own pipes. And I absolutely love smoking them. Obviously, I'm going to say that, I'm biased, but if I didn't like smoking them, I wouldn't smoke them. And this one here, I made this a week or two ago. I've smoked it so much already. You can see how black it is inside. The purpose of the curing is to remove the tannins, to remove any toxins which are inside the sap and things like that, which are inside the wood. It's a natural product of the wood. People like Bill Taylor of Ashton Pipes. I think Radice used to do oil curing. Certain carvers, certain companies are well known to have had a certain recipe, a method for curing their blocks. Bill Taylor was known to have a particular recipe for for when he cured his pipes, and his pipes were said to have a nutty flavour as soon as you lit it up the first time, to have a really good flavour. But all of that is just literally, it'll give you a nice flavour if it's true. It'll give you a nice flavour the first few balls. After that, whatever you're smoking in your tobacco is going to have the effect on your briar. So in terms of, in my experience, in my limited experience, let me say that with that caveat, in my limited experience, I would say that there isn't going to be a huge difference based on pipes that I've smoked. I've smoked some really old pipes, I've smoked plenty new pipes, and plenty in between. And it's really about that particular block of briar that you've got. Some have just are better. It's just nature, how it grows. I don't cure my blocks. I just let them stand. They just need to dry. The curing is done by the person who cuts the blocks originally. As I said, in my case, it's most of my blocks are from Mimo in Italy, and he does all the curing there. And as I say, by the time I've got them, they're usually 1 to 2 years old, and I put them in a box. I date every block that I get, And yeah, you see I've written on it 720, that's July this year. And what I just use the older ones that I've got, I use first, and that's how I go. I'm not in a position to build up my stock to have thousands of blocks. Hey Piano, hey Boris. I don't know if you guys caught the virtual pipe club this evening, earlier on. David Dorian hosting, and tonight they had Michael Parks, a very well-known pipe maker in America. Pictures and more, very funny. Yes, you can make a pipe out of milk chocolate, is the answer. I do have one upstairs, actually. Evening, Mike, how you doing? You hanging in there. Yeah, about the same, hanging in there. It was almost prophetic what you said to me the other day, and you just learn to live with it, and that's pretty much where I'm at the moment. There's certain positions that I've got to be careful not to stand in because that stretches that area and it causes pain. And it's a struggle to find a comfortable position to lie in and all that kind of sitting. I have to keep moving around. But at the moment, I'm just learning to live with it. Yeah, well, the doc said that hopefully it'll pass, and they don't sort of take it too seriously until 6 weeks. If it hasn't passed after 6 weeks, then they start looking at it. Mm. That's a good question, Daniel. Let me put it this way: I don't know if it takes the pain away, but it's a distraction and it just relaxes. So either way, it's a good thing. So I can't say it takes the pain away, but it certainly takes my mind off the pain. Yeah, I hear you, Mike. I hear you. I wanted to ask Michael Parks more questions, but I felt I was hogging the air time, and so I just left it after a couple of questions. I could see David was getting a little bit nervous that maybe other people weren't getting any questions in, but a good dose of morphine. Yeah, you're probably right. Hey, Bona, how you doing? Hey, Tree. Pick up a hammer. Hit thumb. Back pain gone. Well, I think one of the things that I'm going to need to do, ciao Sandro, is I'm going to have to sort my car out. This whole car situation doesn't seem, it just seems to be never ending. So my wife's car's been written off. Told you about that. That the bus had backed into it. That's been written off. We've agreed a settlement. So now we've got one Previa, which is one van, and one Mazda regular car. It turns out that Mazda is a bit of a nightmare. Once I'm in, it drives beautifully. It's a lovely car to drive. But getting in and out is an absolute nightmare. Chad was having this problem, Mike. Message deleted by the Google moderator team. This is the latest thing now. Tonight was the first time I've seen this. And Chad had the same thing. I don't know what you said there, Mike, but I'm sure it was nothing. They must have some kind of bot running, scanning these things. Yeah, my wife could drive the Mazda, Daniel, but she needs it for school run. She needs the extra seats. The van has 7 seats. So in the meantime, until I do manage to change the car, we'll both be using the van probably. I might be going to see a car tomorrow. We'll see. Yeah, this isn't actually inspired by Costello, not consciously anyway. I was just going through my stem box, and I wanted to make a pipe I wanted the lines to flow from button to bowl, and that's really what I've been aiming to do here, is to have that taper go all the way with very flowing lines. And I haven't yet decided what I'm doing at this end. Hey Ron, how you doing? That's where I'm at the moment. Like I said, it looks a little bit like a horn. I don't really want to thin the walls anymore, and I've still got to work on shaping the top. It's a completely freehand shape. This I haven't done this on the lathe at all, and I've got to just keep going at it and see where it takes me. And it has got some nice grain. Hey Anthony. A domed apple. So I'm thinking I'm gonna maybe sort of, you can see it more on this side. You see this curve here is made to get this bit here rounded a little bit more so it follows that line almost like a Zulu. And maybe just bring this bit back so it's flatter, but I don't really want to thin it much more. And kind of just get this flowing line going. That's really what I'm aiming for. North Country, how you doing? Pencil shanks are very delicate, Daniel, and people who buy them are usually aware of that, and they be very careful with it. And most of them are lined with a metal tube to strengthen them. This pipe here, this one has got quite a slender shank. It's nowhere near a pencil shank, but it's a nice slender shank on this one. I was thinking of actually sanding this back to briar, because it did actually look quite nice just naked and just polished. So I'm not sure, because the grain is not spectacular at all on this pipe. It's actually a very fine grain. You have to look really close and you can see that really sort of fine hair, like almost tiny little worms sort of crawling all over the surface. It's that kind of grain, very fine grain. I don't know if you can make it out because this is a fixed focus camera. But the overall shape, I just like it. It's got a really sleek, refined shape. No, they're not. They're not pencil shanks, Daniel. And it's just the shape. So a Canadian shape is an oval shank, but it could be thick. It could be that thick. It could be an inch thick if you want. But as long as it's oval and it's long, generally speaking, people tend to make them really flat. That's the classic shape of a Canadian. As long as it's long with a short tapered stem, that would make it a Canadian. And a vat, again, is just a standard billiard with a short saddle stem, really, with a longer than usual shank as well. I mean, they're all derivatives of a billiard, essentially. So after speaking to Michael Parks earlier on, it looks like that at some point I'm going to have to invest in a machine lathe, in a metal lathe. I don't see how I can get away from that if I want to try and extend my abilities when it comes to pipe adornments, whether it's bands and things like that. I can't see how I'm going to get away with that without getting a metal lathe. It is fireworks, God knows why, because the weather's been atrocious today. Oh, it's Diwali, okay. Well, bulldogs, Rhodesians, they're all derivatives of billiards. They're all billiards of a sort. You know, somebody at some point in history took a billiard and made a diamond shank out of it, and he got called a bulldog. Put some rings on it, and got called a Rhodesian. What came first, I've got no idea. But they're all types of billiards, mostly. I mean, an apple is also this. This is more of an apple shape, and that's also a billiard, but just with a bulbous bowl. The bowl is rounded. It's all essentially the same thing. I was watching a video by Jeff Graysick, and he was saying that he was told by whoever mentored him that there's basically just two basic shapes in pipe making. There's the billiard and the volcano. You take a piece of briar, and when you're talking about classic shapes, and getting grain and following grain, so here, look, a nice piece of briar, beautiful grain. Now, if you hold it up this way, you've got the plateau on top. You imagine you follow the lines, you can make a Dublin or a billiard over there, and you've got your straight grain. Turn it upside down. What have you got? You got a volcano. Right? And that's what he was saying. Basically, any block of briar, a plateau block, it's either a billiard and a derivative of a billiard or a volcano, and then you work from there. Got to think of a nice shape to make from that. As you can see, I don't have running water here. There you go, Josh is on the ball. He's absolutely on the ball. I wouldn't have thought of that. I wouldn't make a poker. I'm not a big fan of pokers. I mean, I've had them over the years, but and I've made a few, but I'm not a big fan. You're all heart, Josh. You're all heart. Is there a reason I don't make an oompal? No, I've just not tried one really. Drilling them is a bit of a bugger, but other than that, I just haven't tried. Absolutely, Josh. The less pipes you make, the more you know. That's a very uh, time-honored tradition. No running water in the workshop, Daniel. My workshop is at the back of the garden. I used to have running water. I ran a pipe many years ago. I ran a pipe out here, but it's since then gotten disconnected. I tell myself that one day I'll clear this out completely, make an open space, put a small bathroom in here, get running water, put a fridge in. I don't know. We'll see one day. If financial blessings smile on me, then maybe one day I'll do that. Your cat busted it in half. Wow. Espresso machine, exactly. So tomorrow, maybe, I'm not sure. My son was supposed to make an arrangement to go to a car dealership tomorrow. I don't know if he actually managed to organise it or not. So I guess we'll find out in due course. Well, basically, I've come to the conclusion, Mike, that I've got to get a higher up car, a 4x4 of some description, or a van, or something like that. Tomorrow, what I'm looking at, if my son has arranged it, is a Lexus LX 300. Yeah, it's an SUV type thing. It's an old. You get a very good value for money with the Lexuses. It's an old one. It's like a 14 or 15-year-old Lexus in very nice condition, relatively low miles. It's got about 80,000 miles. And the asking price is about 4,500. Do I mix colours? Sometimes, yeah. Here's a little thing of colours that I mixed up the other day. I actually used it today on pipe 234, I think it is, the square shanked billiard, to give a bit of a golden sort of colour to it. Came out quite nice. I don't do it a lot. I tend to use the Fiebing's leather dyes, which work very, very well. And depending on how you sort of cut back the stain, how far back you take it, you can actually adjust how sort of strong the stain is. That's pounds, so 4,500. So you're probably looking at about $5,500. Yeah, this one was actually stained with, I think it was oxblood colour from Feevings. There's actually a mixture of brown and oxblood. That's the oxblood. But I use the browns the most. You see that one gets a lot of use. Yeah, it's a good price, but don't forget it's old. I mean, you're talking about it's a from 2006, something like that. So you're talking about 14 years old. That's an old car. But you get a lot of comfort for your money. And if you get a good one, which has got a good service history, low miles, it could last you for years. There's those Lexuses are out there with 200,000-300,000 miles on them. It's definitely a buyer's market at the moment. You know, people haven't got money. The dealers are trying to ship their cars. So, yeah. So for generally speaking, when you look at the guides, the motoring guides, they run it on basically on 10,000 miles per year. So that should have had 160,000. So it's roughly half the mileage. So if it works out, the only thing is it's got a big engine. It's not a hybrid. It's a 3-litre petrol engine. I think it's a V6. So 3 litres, it's going to drink quite a bit, a lot more than my Mazda. The Mazda's fantastic compared to the Toyota that I had before. The Mazda's fantastic. So I'm going to go back to spending a bit more on the petrol, but I don't do a lot of miles, and the comfort is it's got value. So V6, I believe it's a V6 24 valve. Yeah, in the States you're still pretty okay with petrol, although you guys will say that you pay a fortune for petrol compared to what you used to pay, but it's still a lot less than we pay over here. Well, they've got a very good reputation. I don't need a rocket anymore. I used to enjoy that, but I still do on occasion, but I don't need a rocket anymore. My son, who's actually works in the car industry, my third boy, he's must be 23 or 24 now, and he keeps telling me I should go for a lease car, get a new car and lease it. But I'm one of these old-fashioned kind of guys. I don't like driving around in a new car. I don't like the whole showmanship of it. It's just not me. And some people might say it's not showmanship, you're just driving a new car, you know, but it's just not me. Yeah, but most of these, Daniel, you can't smoke in them. And smoking in my car is a big part of my life. There you go, Mike. So I'm thinking of trying to make this almost a straight panel up to that point there, and then let that curve around, and then do the same on that side. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe take it a little bit further back, but it's already starting to curve. So maybe a fraction further back, and maybe possibly rusticate this back panel, make it interesting. We'll see. Might be nice to rusticate this and rusticate that, something like that. Good night, Simplex. Shalom. That's really one of my main worries about getting a vehicle like the Lexus, is the cost. You know, if something goes wrong with it, sometimes it's a write-off. You know, you can get a part which costs a couple of grand and that's it. It's just not worth doing. It's got some minute spots, but those not real issue. Just little dots, you know, you can hardly see them there. There's one right there. But those will be blended into staining very easily. But this here has got some nice grain on the side, really will work well on the side, on a panel. But on this side it's not the same, it's that rounded type grain, which I don't like, but it is what it is. Hey Jeffrey, how you doing? $1.79 a gallon. So that's probably about £1.20 for a gallon. That's what we pay for a litre. Okay? So you're alright, don't complain. At the moment it's about £1.15, £1.20 for a litre of petrol. So there's what, 4 or 5 litres to a gallon? Something like that. So we're paying 4 or 5 times as much as you guys. Ouch, exactly, smoking the ghost. Do we have diesel-powered vehicles in England? We do. But the value of those has plummeted literally down to the ground because they're kind of going... they're being outlawed. I don't know if it'll stay that way or not, but they're talking about by 20... Is it 2025 or 2030? They want them all to be gone. So diesel prices have gone down, plummeted big time. My son has a 5 Series BMW, which he wanted to give me to use. But because of the whole diesel thing, it's not fully ULEZ compliant. We have something called the ultra low emission zone around the centre of London, which is being expanded around the whole North Circular, and I cross the North Circular every day. So I would have to pay every time I literally go up the road to cross over the North Circular. I'd have to pay something like £15 a day because I've got a diesel car. So yeah, that's also a point. They are the suspension is harder on those. Yeah, the Mercedes diesels, they're fantastic. I mean, I don't own a German car. I never have owned a German car, but that's more of a personal thing. But which I don't know how much relevance it has these days, but there you go. It's more out of respect for my parents and grandparents. So I won't be getting a German car anytime soon. But the Lexus, it will drink. I'm pretty sure it will drink. I once had, many years ago, I had a Honda Legend, which was, my uncle used to call it the poor man's Lexus. Also, beautiful, luxurious car, big car. It was also a 3 litre and it drank like a fish. Yeah, electric vehicles, I would go for electric car, but they're too expensive. I can't afford them. No worries, Daniel, take your time. This block, I have to say, does feel denser than other blocks. No more gas cars, okay. Batteries are very expensive, yeah. I was talking to somebody about that just the other day. Because I looked at a Prius a while back. And I had a look online beforehand, and they said you've got to be careful about the age. Once they get to about 10 years old, they need a battery change. And the batteries can cost, I don't know, maybe £1,000 or £2,000 to change the battery, the main rechargeable battery, which kind of kills the value of the car. Oh, I went through that ball quick. The range, you mean the range of the electric motors before they run out? I think really hybrid is the way to go. To me, hybrids make the most sense, the most practical. But I think what they could do, see at the moment, I think with Priuses, is it Priuses or Prii? I think with Priuses, I think when you hit 30 miles an hour, the engine kicks in, the petrol engine kicks in, or 35, something like that. If they could change that so that the petrol engine only kicks in if you accelerate hard or if you hit 50 miles an hour, I think that would be a better option. Because around town, people don't usually need to go more than 40 or 50 miles an hour, say if they're on a dual carriageway. If they could do that, I think that would be a much better happy medium. Going completely electric is a problem because, as you say, the range is a bit of an issue. But if you still have a hybrid but has a better capacity for electricity, for using the electric, I think that would be a better way to go. One thing I've learned about tamping, you see so many people, when they're tapping, jamming that tamper in there, pushing down. That's when you end up getting problems with the draw. When you pack your bowl, you want to pack it so that it's light underneath, so there's a bit of an air pocket there. There's a bit of a sponginess, depending on the method that you use. If you use the Frank method, then you've got almost a vacant hole there. But if you use just a general three pinch method, and you keep it really light, you tap too hard, you're basically voiding the whole process. I did that for a while, Bona. That's the Frank method. I did do that for a while, and I still do that sometimes. But you can achieve the same result in different ways. So if you do the 3-pinch method, what I do is I just gravity fill it now, so that which basically achieves the same thing. So it's really softly loaded at the bottom, so there's plenty of air there, and you don't have to worry about that little pinch caving in and collapsing. So it's just really softly loaded until even at the top. So the three pinch method, generally you do really light, like gravity fill, then a little bit firmer, and then you firmer still at the top. I just do the same all the way through. I just do gravity fill all the way to the top. I suppose it comes to the same thing. You put it down a little bit so you can get a bit more tobacco in, and then I go from there. But I think after a while, you just do. It's just instinct. It becomes second nature. People in the beginning, when they start smoking a pipe, they find it difficult to get it right, and they kind of almost get put off, and sometimes even consider giving up. But it's just a matter of time. That's all it is. Whichever method, you'll find the method that works for you over time, and you'll do it by nature, by instinct. You won't even think about it. That makes a lot of sense. Hi, XJ. Boris, what you're talking about there makes a lot of sense. Hold on, I just need to shift. In a V-shaped bowl, I would say that it makes a lot more sense to use the Frank method, because your tobacco is going to get congested towards the bottom if you fill it. If you've got a V-shaped bowl and you fill it with a 3-pinch method, there's a lot more tobacco at the top than there is at the bottom, and you start pushing that down, it's going to start pushing and contracting and pushing, and it's going to get too tight. So you're 100% right. The Frank method would be a lot more sensible on a V-shape. There you go, Anthony. So the way things are going, there's every chance that you'll get a morning drive video on Monday. We shall see. Put it this way, if it doesn't get any worse, then hopefully I'll start to get around this week. Yeah, me too, Piano. You've heard me talk about, wax lyrical about that. Tongue bite, I think, is a lot of people's problem, which I could only solve by going to 9mm. That was my saviour. And that's why all the pipes I make can take 9mm filters. Because everything that I do about pipe making is based on my experiences. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who've had the same experiences. And I think there's quite a market now for 9mm pipes. More so than when I first started. smoking a pipe, I think. And one of the reasons why I've stuck to 9mm pipes is because when I started getting into buying pipes, when I started getting into 9mm pipes, smoking 9mm pipes, I couldn't find any really nice pipes. There were some. I mean, there's some of the German pipe makers, and you got some Italian ones, or Danish ones. But generally speaking, you could get Savinelli ones. Some of the range is 9mm, but mostly 6mm. But they can be drilled out for 9mm. Stanwells, there was always a selection of Stanwells. And then it was the lower end kind of things, like the Molinas and this kind of thing. Okay, if you got the German ones, the Vaughan ones, those were all 9mm pretty much. So I wanted to produce pipes which were sort of a little bit on the next level, but 9mm, and give people a choice. That's really what I've been about. But Shaquan, yeah, a lot of theirs actually, you had both options, a bit similar to what I do. They have, or rather, I do a little bit similar to what they do. Excuse me. So they often, if you go on the Danish Pipe Shop, they'll sort of quote it as a pipe with a filter option. So they give you the adapter with it, and you can either smoke it with or without. Sorry, Anthony. 9mm as opposed to what I assume you meant 6mm. 9mm as opposed to 6mm. The 6mm are a little bit more restrictive because they're narrower. I've tried them just once or twice, and I find them to be a bit more restrictive, and they're not as plentiful online. You can get them, and they're more expensive, I think. But you can get the White Elephant brand. I think they do a 6mm. But they're not as readily available. 9mm, you've got lots of different brands, and the draw is better. The draw is definitely better. But I find even with 9mm, sometimes I get tongue bites. So for instance, with the aromatics, the vanilla cream, the 131, and even Northwoods, after a while, if you smoke too much, you can get a bit of tongue bite, a little bit of a pinch on the tongue, and that's from the aromatics, which is why I've taken to diluting it a little bit, and it's not so oppressive. Well, I want to crack on with this pipe. You guys are welcome to. I can stay online if you want me to, or I can call it a day. But I do want to carry on sanding. I don't mind talking while I'm doing that, as long as you don't mind the noise. You guys okay with that, or should I call it a day? Call it a night? Okie dokie. Well, if it gets boring, just let me know and I'll turn it off. If you want to ask any questions, fire away. All right, Anthony. Have a good one. Thanks for joining. So it's already looking better, this area there. You're going on Tuesday, Werner. You're not going to see Cliff, are you? Desert Pine Piper, how you doing? Very good, Mike. Comes to marriages, Mike has experience. What's impressive, Mike, is that you still live to tell the tale. And you've come out with pipes as well. Hey, Daniel. Must be honest, when I first started this pipe, I wasn't very confident about it working out. I haven't really done freehand pipes before, and I was really nervous about getting this top edge looking respectable. But sort of take your time, it does get there. It's getting there, not quite there yet, but I did actually look at a Land Rover Discovery, but they're also notoriously expensive to maintain, and I decided against the Land Rover. The Lexuses are very reliable, generally speaking. Most Japanese car brands are. The Lexus is basically a Toyota. It's just a higher end Toyota. And Toyotas, Hondas, Nissans, just generally very reliable, less complicated than some of their counterparts. Yeah, exactly. It's just not worth taking the risk. I'm not in that kind of position where I can risk having to spend £2,000-3,000 on a car. Nissan's a trouble, really? Good to know. To be honest, if this Lexus works out, I'll probably buy it. If I can get a decent part exchange value on the Mazda. Even if I don't, I may well buy it and sell the Mazda. I know I'm going to take a hit on the Mazda. There's nothing I can do about it. It's just one of those lessons in life. A Bentley, absolutely, Mike. I smoke a Bentley, I don't drive one. Retention of value is not so much of an issue because I'm buying at the lower end, you know, something like £4,000. And, you know, if I use it for a few years, it won't be worth that much afterwards, which doesn't matter. I'll have had my value out of it. I don't usually spend more than £4,000 to £5,000 on a car. So the Toyotas that I've had up to now, spent around £4,500, £5,000 on them. Had them for 4 or 5 years. So £1,000 a year is great value as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, motorcycle. No, don't think so, Sam Daniel. Yeah, we may well be going for a panel look. That's the general idea. Got to be careful with the sanding because this is 9mm. And I get this too thin and then I'm in trouble. So I've got to keep an eye on that. There's still a fair bit of material around the tenon, which is okay. Am I going to be lighting that cigar? Probably not. I'll probably finish that tomorrow. I actually started that on Friday. And it's a bit late for me to start that now. Very, very tight fit on the tenon, which is good. This bit here is a bit Le Nouveau kind of look to it. Not this bit, but this bit. The Le Nouveau on this bit is much more exaggerated. But I've been reading some of the old magazines that Josh sent me. Hi Mike, Gamecock, how you doing? Well, the thing with cigars that you've already smoked and come back to is you've got to blow through them, you've got to purge them, and then they're okay. Obviously, up to a point. I mean, it's not going to taste exactly the same. Okay, I grant you that, but they're perfectly smokable. I come back to cigars the next day many times and absolutely fine. If I'm doing a video of a cigar, then I wouldn't do that. I'd smoke it in one go. I actually recorded a video the other night. I haven't uploaded it yet. What did I smoke? Yeah, it was a Partagas limited edition from 2017. Sayakapo pipes. Yeah, I've got some. I don't smoke any on a regular basis. Some of them go for a lot of money. Some of the really special ones. But it's not a brand that I've really gotten to grips with, to be honest. What I want to learn is how they do the lines on the Sayakapo pipes. And some of the high-grade Danish pipes and stuff like that, they do these carved lines, which are just, they look machine-made. I don't know how it could be done by hand, but some of them are done by hand. I was watching a German pipe maker, Lorenz. I watch him quite often, his videos, and I just watched him do it with a sanding wheel. Okay, it wasn't anything elaborate, but still. But some of the lines, I don't know how they do it. It's something I would love to learn how to do. Sorry, I'm getting confused with Mastro de Paya, not Sayakapo. Although they are quite similar. I imagine their families in history probably were connected in some way. As is the case in many, many carving houses in Italy. I don't think so, Daniel. I think it's more about the pipes themselves. You know, I've smoked many, many brands, and it really depends on the pipe. You know, people say that these smoke well, that brand smokes well. Take Dunhills, for instance. Dunhill is, you know, one of the probably the most famous pipe factory in the world. Some people say that they smoke great. Some people say they don't. And to me, again, based on my limited experience, I have not seen one brand in particular smokes better than the others. It's just a matter of, I'm not actually sure that's true, because if I look at my Stanwell pipes, I find that the Stanwells smoke better than most of the Savinellis, for instance, which is obviously another famous factory pipe. To me, the Stanwells smoke better than the Savinellis. I tend to find a lot with the Savinellis, not the autograph, or maybe the upper end ones, the Ponte d'Oro, although I haven't had any of those. But the autographs that I've smoked have all smoked well. But I find that the lower end Savinellis, I don't like them. I don't like the way they're finished. They have and I don't want to diss anybody who's got Savinelli pipes. I have them myself. But there's something about them which I just don't like. They have this, I wouldn't say unfinished look, but they have a lower end feel about them. And maybe it's the rustication. I don't know what it is. But the autographs I found, although I'm not that impressed with the shaping of the autographs, but they smoke well. Whereas the Stanwells, the Danish Stanwells, certainly, the jury is out as far as I'm concerned about the difference between the Danish and the Italian Stanwells. The Italian Stanwells, I've got only one of those, which is the 2020 Pipe of the Year. And I've smoked it a few times, and it smoked very well. The only difference between the two, I would say, is that they are not finished as well as the Danish Stanwells. The Danish Stanwells were finished much, much better, to a much better degree. The buttons much, much more comfortable, whereas the Italian ones, you know, quite meaty. You know, not much love gone into shaping of the button, that kind of thing. I don't know the answer to that one, Daniel. Maybe Mike knows. I don't know what the registration number ones are. Good night, Tim. Yeah, you can still get the Bromfit pipes. What's his name has them? They're very cheap. GQ Tobaccos has them. My Smoking Shop has them. Right, so basically what I've done there is I've just gone over to the buffing wheel. I'm not after buffing, nowhere near, but I do this just in the middle of making the pipe because it just highlights for me the areas that need sanding. If you have a look at it, you can see where the grain is there, and it really just highlights, you can see where you've got sort of uneven areas, and so there's still a lot of sanding to go, but you can see that shape there coming together nicely. But there is a difference between the sides, you can see that. It's getting there. So I think I'm going to probably, with a sanding wheel, take a little bit more off on the bottom there. But this tapering has worked really well, and I hope I don't mess that up. You saw me sort of focusing on this area, sanding before. It's just to keep that line going. It's really important to me. That's the whole point of the exercise today, was to use this tapered stem and have that tapering going all the way. I won't leave this one blonde. There's too many little black dots on it, so nothing serious, but there are just, they're unsightly. They're tiny little dots, literally spots, like pin drops, pin spots. But they are unsightly, and a little bit of stain will hide those. Got a couple on the top there. So they're not sand pits, well they are, I suppose. But they're really very small, and they need to be hidden. This one will definitely get a stain, I think. I need to decide. So I think I'm going to get onto the wheel. If you want to watch that, you can. Only thing is, I don't know how much you're going to see, because I haven't yet set up the things that Josh sent me. So you're going to have, your view is going to be a bit restricted, I think. Let me see if you can see anything here. Oh, you can. You can just about make that out there. Just put the fan on, extractor. So you're on the table, so it's going to vibrate a bit, that's all. Okay guys, volume down. I'd advise you to turn your volume down now. I'm putting my earphones on. Okie dokie. Can't really see the grain or anything like that because it's, don't know if you can get any of it. It dries up, it absorbs it so quickly. You can just about make out the grain there. Alright, I think I'm going to leave it there tonight because I'm scared that I'll just go too far, so I'm going to take a fresh approach to it tomorrow. I'll carry on sanding and then hopefully it'll be ready at some point tomorrow, depending on how long I leave the stain, if I leave it overnight or not. Depends on what kind of finish I'm looking for. It's not quite there. That, if you look at the top rim, that wall there is thicker than that wall there. This one is, so I probably have to sand this side down a little bit more. But it's coming along, and this sort of whole section here has really turned out very well. Very happy with that. There's different ways I could go here. I mean, I could sculpt this out, but it would just completely lose this whole flow. It's this kind of junction here which I've got to really just, I could just leave it like that, which is fine. Don't know, we'll see tomorrow. Alright, well, it's 2:15. So I'm going to wish you all well. Thank you very much for joining me, everybody. Thanks for rocking steady. Boris, Sandro, Josh, Joe, Raghu, hi. JBN951, Bona, Jimmy, Boris, I think I've said that already. Glenn, Daniel, Mr. Johnson, ooh, retired, and Mike, Briar Blues, Mike, Gamecock, Piper, and everybody else. Good night, WV. Hi, Jeff. Didn't see you there. Hope you're well. And I will catch you all on the next one.